We all know that the world has changed, but the question is, what actions are you taking to adapt to this new world? In many cases, I probably don't have to tell you what you need to do technically to make these changes. You already know. You know what topics, you know what things you need to focus on. So therefore, there must be another reason why this isn't eventuating. I would suggest to you that that's probably due to a lack of action. Now, a lack of action can be based in the fact that it's difficult to get started, that there is too much to take in at any one time. So what we've really got here is we've got that most people are suffering from inertia. So they're having this problem getting off the mark. It's all too hard to actually get started. If they could get started, then at least they'd be progressing towards the goals. So what actions have you taken in the last 12 months, even the last month, to overcome this inertia if you do suffer from it? And again, what new technologies or skills have you acquired on your own initiative? What ones have you gone out, searched, researched, and learnt about, and then documented as well? Now, it's all well and good to say, yes, I know a technology and I've learned a technology, but you know what? You really have to be able to demonstrate that publicly. Now, lots of different ways that can be done, but the important thing is that you're able to point to a body of work publicly by which you can then show other people and allow them to make their own judgment. So building up this body of work, including making some of that available publicly, is very, very important as we move forward. So as the technology has progressed, ask the question, have you as well? Are you progressing as fast as the technology is progressing? One of the sayings of Jack Welch is that if the change inside an organization is not as rapid as the change outside, then the business is doomed. So again, look at how fast you're able to change and adapt here, because they are very, very important things going forward for being an IT professional. Now, are you doing things that will help people? Are you actually doing things that are really going to make a difference to customers? So imagine what the impact is going to be if you can actually go in and take action. Now, the reason is that a lot of people probably still aren't going to take action. They're going to look at this, they're going to take the information, but then decide it's all too hard. So remember that the complacent make excuses and the successful act. So take action here. At the end of this, please do take some of these ideas, thinkings away with you and act on them. Now, sitting there and complaining about things is really not going to help you achieve anything. It doesn't help you move forward. The environment is not going to change. Basically, the way technology is moving, the speed that it's moving is not going to change. So again, if you don't want to be in an environment that encourages inertia, you want to move away, you want to remove yourself from an arena in which everything else is locked via inertia. Remember that people that say that they're busy all the time, that's simply a form of laziness. That's basically them saying they haven't got focus. They haven't got the energy or the time and don't want to make the effort to actually focus on what needs to be done, to determine what's important and what's not important. Remember, in this environment, it's less about optimizing for a stable set of variables than being responsive and adaptive to the continuing shifting environment. So again, we need to be far more adaptable. Adaptable is the most important thing you can be personally and also within your business. That's because it's no use making efficiencies in a model that won't work or that isn't suitable for the current environment. Remember, adaptability, not efficiency, has to become the central competency, especially in IT, going forward. Remember that you can't change the environment. You're going to have to adapt to the environment that is the one that you work in. Now, let's take a moment to celebrate what the IT professional has been traditionally good at. They've been very, very good at doing customer service, at problem solving, at managing relationships, providing guidance, and in general, they're very loyal. And most IT providers, especially the smaller ones, have longevity. They've been in the business for a long, long time, some 5, 10, even 15 to 20 years. they've been servicing clients and they've seen the changes, and they've seen many clients come and go and many technologies come and go. They've done a really good job for their clients over the time, and that should be celebrated, because without them, many businesses would not be nearly as successful as they are today. However, what we've been doing for many years as IT pros has been going out there and putting out fires. We've basically been in a reactive mode of waiting for the call, putting on the suit, sounding the siren, and then heading off to put out the fire. When it's done, we go back and wait for the next fire. Now, again, that can be tomorrow, or that could be months and months in advance. So again, we really don't have this good feeling for the customer's business. We're only called on as required. The more we do that, the more the customer begins to reinforce that sort of mindset, and we're only there in case of emergencies. Now, obviously, the new model, or the model that is out there, is the managed service provider, but that really simply shifts the provision or the service from something to being a firefighter to being basically around insurance. So instead of paying per fire, you just pay insurance and the firemen come and put out the fire. So again, the thing I would say is that's not really being part of the business conversation. My question is do you have a chair at the management of your customers, at the point when they're making decisions about the technology? How many times have we been involved where the decisions have been made and it's very hard to accommodate those in the environment or in the budget that we have been provided? So remember that today the landscape is not what it used to be. It's not all waterfalls and it's not all lovely greenery at this stage. And the whole cloud versus on-prem discussion is basically over, right? We need to use the best technology to solve problems. Now, that could be a mixture of cloud and on-prem. It could be pure cloud. It really doesn't matter. It's a matter of choosing the best technology to suit the environment and the business need. But some of the differences here are that the technology life cycle is much shorter. Products are being updated far faster in the cloud because the vendors are able to do that. We're now in a world of multiple devices. Most people are using not only a desktop, they're using a laptop, they may be using a tablet, and maybe 2 or 3 mobile phones. So one user now has multiple devices. We've also got businesses using multiple services. Now, again, this means they have information from third-party providers in the cloud. They have still on-prem installations. They're maybe using some servers and some Office 365 or whatever. So multiple servers need to be integrated together, have things like their identity and management all managed simply and easily. We've also got multiple vendors here. We've got lots and lots of different providers. We've not only got Microsoft, we've potentially got Apple with iOS, we've got Google with Android, and we've got other third-party providers, Xero, accounting systems, and so on. In this world, the users are now in control. They're driving, they're making the requests, they're wanting to see these features, they're wanting to see the latest thing implemented, right? And in many cases, we're also seeing that the services being charged are consumption-based. They're not basically paid by time. They're basically done by transaction now. So Azure AD and those sort of services are good examples. You generally only pay for those by transactions, okay? So this is a changing world. So our PaaS environment, our platform as a service, is moving very much to a transactional-based economic model where we only pay for the transactions that we use. And remember, there's not really any money in actually selling or reselling products anymore. You can't just add a margin to a product and expect a client to purchase that. Those sort of products, they're available at the shops, they're available online at a much better deal. So there has to be additional value added around those services. Now, the other change we've got to incorporate here is that many IT providers now are older than the people they're installing technology for. Millennials are now the largest demographic in our workspace, and the way that they work is very different. They don't typically send emails. They don't use the phone. They're going to send SMSs and use social media to communicate. This shift is also taking place in the workforce, and IT providers are going to need to adapt to that. So we all know that the landscape has changed. We all know that the landscape is going to continue to change. We also know that this change is going to continue to accelerate. So the biggest challenge that most people have in technology when it comes to supporting customers is staying current. This is really this concept of adaptability. New products, new services, new additions are coming out every day. There's also new pricing models. It's just like I said, not the way of adding a margin. You need to add value on top of that. You need new skills. Many people are still carrying around old certifications that they believe are current. It's moved on. We need to look at improving that and improving their knowledge in a way that we can demonstrate to people, as I mentioned, publicly. All right, it's not just about embracing the cloud, it's learning how to integrate with it. It's learning how to take the best of any environment and basically making it work together, integrating it together. Now that we know that Office 365 has significant market share, but really how well do you know it? How much time have you invested in learning the Office 365 product, for example, end to end? It's all about embracing this software. It's all about embracing these new services and understanding how they work and how that features can be translated into something the customer can use. It's also a world where we need to focus on understanding that smaller partners can no longer do everything themselves. They really need to partner with others who can fill voids in their offerings. They really need to work with others to provide this end-to-end solution. The answer to any question should be yes, I can find someone for you to do that, even though I may not know how to do it myself. So again, that's what the customers expect. If you can't provide that, then they're going to use their search engines and pull somebody else in who then may leverage that and push you out of their business. So again, partnering is so important, especially the smaller you are. And overall, you really need to change the thinking to think like an end user. The services, the products need to be delivered so that end users can make them work in their business. This is a different way from just saying, here's the latest technology, start using it. So again, sit down, have a think, and change the aspect in which you look at the business problems. It's not just pure technology, it's helping the user get their job done. So many of the challenges here are a journey. There's no simple answer, and the challenges are going to continue. But when you're looking at these challenges, how are you looking at them? Are you looking at them through a rearview mirror, or are you looking out through the windscreen? If you're still hesitant to implement cloud technology or adopt things like Office 365 and Azure, then I would suggest to you that you're probably more comfortable in the older world where you're doing things because that's what you know how to do. If you're implementing things like a domain controller on-prem still, is that really the best solution, or is that simply a choice you've made because you're more comfortable with it and you haven't investigated other options? So again, it's all about exploring these other options to skill yourself up and to really take on board what's available. Because remember, although many IT providers may be navigating via the rearview mirror, what are your customers doing? They're in that same traffic jam with you, trying to move their business forward, but they're keen to use the latest products. They're really looking to be cutting edge, to give them the differentiation in their business. And they expect you to know, okay? So as I mentioned, have a think about your domain controllers. If you're still installing domain controllers on-prem, again, is that because that's the best solution, or because that is something that you are most comfortable with when it comes to implementing identity? So the challenge here, as I mentioned, is the road is not straight. It's not clear. There are lots of options. There are lots of potential paths that you can go down. The choices you need to make are probably something you have to make on a regular basis. Okay, there are lots of turns. Okay, the important thing is that as an IT person, you're going to be judged on your skill set. What do you know? What value can you bring to the conversation and to a customer's environment? Okay, so remember that the amount that you can charge will be very much a function of your skill set. The more skilled you are, obviously the more that you can charge. Now, a question I ask many IT providers is, especially the smaller ones, is could you get a job on the open market today? If you had to go and apply for a job in the paper that you saw, would you have the skill set to be able to actually successfully get into that job. And that can be a challenge. So go and have a look at what these standard job offerings are now asking for. They're typically asking for skill sets around PowerShell, skill sets around Office 365, Azure, AWS, those sort of things as well. If you don't have those sort of skill sets, then in many cases that's probably what is below what the world or what the market is currently asking for. So the challenges of today are that the world is not linear. There's not a straight line from one point to another. It keeps changing. We're expecting to take inputs all the time, which means we're not only non-linear, but we're also working in parallel. We've got so many things to consider, and it's constantly changing. All right. Now, if the environment's constantly changing, we need to adapt. We need to change as well. We need to come up with a process that helps us manage or deal with the environment that changes. Because we can't change the environment, we have to come up with a system to deal with that. Now, remember, in our system today is that information is a commodity. Anybody can go to a search engine, do a search, and get a huge amount of result. The knowledge, the ability to apply that information is the rarity. That's the value add that people can provide. All right, so think about your learning process. Are you learning on demand? Are you learning via the search engine? Or are you being proactive, right? There are just too many things to try and learn on demand now. So again, need to be proactive, right? Users expect to be enabled, right? So if users don't become enabled or feel they're being restricted in any way, you know what? They'll go out and they'll just do it themselves, all right? So with the tools out there, with the ability to sign up to cloud services and download anything and install it, there's no limit for them to actually implement technology themselves. Now, they probably won't do it correctly, but again, there's no real barrier to entry for them implementing technology that they can find anywhere on the internet. So what tool set are you bringing with you today? When you walk into a business, when you solve a technology problem, when you add value to a customer's business, what tools are you actually bringing to the game? You need to bring the most effective tool. Now, if you look at builders today, they're probably not using a hammer as much as they used to. Why? Well, that's because things like a nail gun are making life easier. The tool's a little bit more expensive, but makes them more productive, and again, allows them to be more consistent in the way that they work. All right, so that's the expectation. When you get a builder, they're going to work as productively as they can to reduce the costs and deliver what they promised, and they're going to use the best tools. Okay, so remember in this that it's all well and good to say that you love what you do, but that ignores one important point. The important point it ignores is the fact that it overlooks what the market wants. Now, you can love what you do, but guess what? If nobody else loves what you do, they're not going to pay for it. So a better way to approach this is to think about do what you're good at and get better at it, okay? People pay for skill. People pay for the most skilled person. That's what you want to be, right? So you want to look at what you're good at and then build your services, build your offerings around that. Now, you're not going to be good at everything. That's a fact. Now, the stuff you're not good at and the stuff you don't want to do, that's when you need to call on others to assist you in filling those gaps. That's when you lean on others. That's when you lean on your peer network, where you work with others, where you meet others at places like conferences and find out and learn about their business and find out how you can help them, potentially how they can help you. Okay, so again, what are the best tools for the modern IT, right? What's really going to work? And remember that it's difficult to retrofit tools or retrofit solutions after the fact. You really need to have the concept or the ideas or the up-to-date knowledge beforehand, because that's going to help you make the best, most informed decision, which is going to then get the best result for your customers. Now, there are many, many problems out there and many, many challenges that need to be solved. Now, again, that can be very daunting, but turned on its head, remember that that also means a world of opportunity. There has never been so much opportunity, and that is part of the problem. We live in a world where there is simply too much choice. So in a world of too much choice, one of the key skills is the ability to focus, okay? That's really going to be a key ingredient for success in the future. It's so easy to get distracted and pulled this way and pulled that way and look at this new tool and look at that new tool. Again, what's your business focus? What's your personal focus? Why are you doing the job that you are doing, and how can you do it better? Okay, you really need to be able to tell me what you offer in something as brief as a tweet. If you can't, then it's going to be very hard to keep my attention, right? So you need to boil it down and focus on exactly what you do so that you can get that across very simply and very quickly to others. Again, where are you able to add the most value, and where are you able to add the most unique value? It'd be great to be able to add lots of value, but if everybody else is able to do that just as easily as you, then probably that's not going to be a very good market for you to be in. So again, think about the business focus and the personal focus, right? That's the difference. You want to find that focus and then outsource or partner with others to do the stuff that you can't and don't want to do. Now, software will eat the world. If you haven't read that article by Mark Andreessen, I certainly advise that you go out and you do a search and you read that article. If you're still building servers, you're building workstations, again, we live in a world of software-defined networking. We've got things like PowerShell, JSON. We've got automation tools like Azure Functions, Flow, if this then that, Zapier. We've got tools now that allow you to deploy Windows 10 thanks to Autopilot. We've got management through the Microsoft Operations Management Suite. We can now script things with PowerShell. We can now apply configurations with desired state configuration. Okay, we're doing everything now by software. If you want to run up an environment in Azure, you can go out to the Azure templates, which are freely available, and apply them, and that will spin up your environment every time regularly. And that means that we need to look at our infrastructure as cattle, not as pets. So every time you run up a server, it's slightly different. It's a nice configuration. They are unique, and this uniqueness is what causes problems. This is where the inefficiencies are, okay? You want to treat your environment, your infrastructure like cattle, which means I need to script it, I need to automate it so that every time I deploy it, it's always consistently the same result. When it fails, I just deploy another server via the script and get the same result. So a good example of this is Microsoft's RDS farms are moving away from having infrastructure. They're moving away from having VMs. They're moving to complete platform as a service where they're all run as web roles. They're not in a domain anymore. So again, this means that software is so much more important. Let somebody else do the hardware and focus on the software. So one of the key skills going forward that IT providers and resellers really need to focus on is to bring up their software skills, especially things like PowerShell, JSON in the Microsoft environment. Now, in all the years that we've had technology, we've always been promised the nirvana where security will improve. But the reality is that security has got harder. In the last 12 months, just think back to all the vulnerabilities, all the issues, all the things that have happened that have potentially caused havoc for people running IT systems, okay? So it's really getting worse, and that is simply because technology is becoming so prevalent, and we're looking at the Internet of Things, and again, we're getting to a point where humans can't do security by themselves anymore. They need machines. They need machine learning. They need some proactive tools monitoring it 24/7 and then acting on the information they received, okay? You have to be proactive when it comes to security. Being reactive, it's too late. Attackers can move so quickly, all right? And that's really the differentiation here, okay? We have to look at things like encryption. We have to make that standard. My question is if you have devices like mobiles or tablets or even PCs, are they encrypted at rest? Are their information stores encrypted? If they're not, they should be. If you're an IT, there is no reason why your devices are not fully encrypted. So take the time, encrypt that, and do the same for your customers, okay? So again, we're looking at a modern way of managing security, and we're moving to a world where that isn't via group policy. It's really through things like mobile device management. So the question again becomes is how comfortable, how knowledgeable are you around mobile device management, because that really is the way you manage your phones, your mobile devices, your Windows 10 PCs these days, okay? So that's the way. Group policy, great, and will be around for a long time, but it doesn't allow you to manage things like iPhones or Android. So again, look at this mobile device management, because it's going to be so important for security going forward, given the environment where devices are no longer connected full-time to a LAN. Now, another technology that I would suggest that you really need to pay attention to is the blockchain. Now, the blockchain, best example of that is Bitcoin currency, which is built on top of the blockchain. But underneath it, the actual technology that blockchain incorporates is a new security and identity mechanism. It basically uses cryptography to guarantee trust between parties in a decentralized network, very much like the internet. Now, imagine a situation where we could do this with something like identity. Instead of having one domain controller on premises, you had your identity uploaded into the blockchain, and every time you needed it, it could be verified no matter where you are. Again, that is going to make a huge change here. But let's think about something else. One of the challenges about using blockchain would be the ability to actually get identities in there. Now, think of a service like LinkedIn, which Microsoft recently purchased, that has a huge amount of identities in there, is a service managed, maintained by Microsoft, and can be applied into any business. So imagine your LinkedIn identity, you took it to the business, they associated it with their business while you worked there, allowed you access to their resources, and then when you finished, they removed that identity and you moved on to the next job where they would add the identity in there. So all of that's sort of possible. So again, this is where things like Azure AD become so important, because identity is the control plane. It's going to be bigger than the internet. This blockchain is really going to fundamentally change not only the financial system, but also the concept of trust. Things like smart contracts are really going to change the way that we do business, right? So we've already got this disruption happening, and it's going to allow us to basically manage the identities of users wherever they are. So I think this is a very important thing to have a look at if you're not into it. Again, spend some time looking at and understanding what the blockchain technology is really all about, and keep an eye on it for the future. Now, at the end of the day, our users need to get their jobs done. They work in teams, right? There's not this traditional structure that there used to be. There's now really a meshing between internal and external resources. There's a situation where users are now coming together much like movies. They have a producer, a director, actors, best boy, electricians, and then when they're finished, they basically leave the set and go and create another movie there. So again, look at the way that teams function today. They form and disband very quickly, and you need to give them the tools to get their job done, because if you don't, they're basically going to do their own thing. Now, some of the recent tools from Microsoft, like Microsoft Teams, things like Yammer, allow this collaboration, allow this working together ad hoc, and then growing into more disciplined and more structured teams. Remember that if these sort of tools or this flexibility isn't provided, your users are simply going to go out and implement something like Shadow IT and do it themselves with disparate tools, which become difficult to manage and put compliance over the top of. So remember, at the end of the day, your users still need to get their job done. What are the best tools to allow them to do this job? So as IT providers, we don't want to be the ones using the old technology. We don't want to get left by the side of the road as the rest of the business community moves on. We don't want to be stuck with legacy technology like a telephone box where everybody else is using mobiles to make calls and bypassing us in their stride. So again, we need to keep up to date. We need to start inside our own business. We need to make sure that the technology we're implementing in our businesses will be something that we can understand and then bring to our customers. So again, you need to use it to understand how it has value. Even if it doesn't appear to make sense, use it in the focus of being able to provide it to customers. Okay. Now, all of this means that, okay, how do you learn this stuff? What's your system for going and continuing to learn this stuff, right? Most vendors make the products available to you for free to play around with. So again, use that, but do it in a system. Be systematic about how you learn and document and pass that knowledge on to others and inside and outside your business. Now, the reason for this is that knowledge is power. Knowledge is going to be how you are able to generate revenue, because information is becoming a commodity. Anybody can look it up. There are thousands of blogs out there showing people how to run stuff up, but really the deep knowledge of how to make it work and solve problems is something that there is real value in. But that doesn't magically appear. It's something that has to be learnt, and it has to be learnt in a systematic way. So that's why schooling is done in a systematic way. That's why university and advanced education is done in that way. So are you bringing that same systematic learning into your organization and into your own personal development? Remember, you don't want to be learning on demand. You don't want to be learning by using a search engine. Anybody can do that. You need to be proactive, get out in front of the game and start learning on a regular basis in a systematic way. So again, let's have a look at the most precious resource that you probably have. That is your time. The amount of time you get is the same as everybody else, but make sure that you use it wisely, because once it's gone, you'll never get it back. Okay, what are the high return investments that you should be spending your time on? And likewise, what are the low value investments that you shouldn't be doing to free up your time? Again, if you have a regular situation where you're always busy, that again, as I mentioned, is being lazy in the fact that you need to get rid of the low value stuff. Okay, the low value stuff is probably stuff you like doing, but you know what? It's not profitable. You really need to get rid of that, outsource it, and focus on the high value stuff, right? Basically, value your time more highly than you probably do already. All right, so remember, think about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, right? We want to go deep, not wide, and we really want to become world-class at something, and that requires an investment in time. Now, I would also suggest that a great investment to grow your business is around social media. Social media is going to allow you to keep up to date by following people and topics and have the information brought to you. Great resources like LinkedIn for business, even things like Facebook, are really, really powerful when used correctly. Like any technology, you may look at it in its defaults and say that it is a waste of time. And I would 100% agree with you. However, don't dismiss the tool because it's used incorrectly, right? Take a look at things like social media and find out how to use Facebook properly. Find out how to use Twitter and LinkedIn. So it gives you the information that you want. Now, a question I would have for you is, are you proud of the LinkedIn profile you have? If you're not, then I would suggest you need to invest some time making sure that you are proud of it, because this is something that many people will look at regularly. It is part of more and more searches every day. It's a great way to demonstrate your knowledge and your experience, and also gather testimonials from customers. So spend the time, invest that in LinkedIn, and then once you've got that profile that you're proud of, make sure you promote it. Make sure that you put it everywhere and you let people know, because it's going to be a great CV, and demonstrate, like I said, publicly, the knowledge and experience that you have. Now, remember that Microsoft owns LinkedIn and is now integrating that into Office 365, so you're going to see more and more LinkedIn information being surfaced into Office 365. Take advantage of that and show your customers how to do that. Remember that things like Facebook, although, again, lots of pictures of cats and that sort of thing, but it's so super important simply because of its breadth. The number of people on Facebook is enormous, and very few other services have that reach. So again, what's your Facebook strategy? Think about that as a way potentially to have an audience, get people following you, get them asking questions, because remember that you're typically going to get business not from the people following you, but from their contacts. So they're going to say, this guy's really good, or this person's really good when it comes to technology. Let's go and recommend them to somebody I know. All right. So again, you need to have a strategy for things like Facebook, because it is simply has such a large reach across our population. All right, so you can use it to spread your brand. Remember, yes, it is a crowded market, but there's always room for quality. So if you bring quality into something like Facebook, again, it's going to attract the people that you want. Importantly, it's all about software, as I mentioned, but that software needs to be deployed to automate so much more stuff, right? You really need to focus on using the bots to do the work for you. Microsoft Flow, if this, then that, Zapier, Azure Functions, they're all there to basically allow many things that are that should be automated to be done. Many things that are repetitive should be done via automation. Again, there's some investment up front, but the payoff, again, is not only a saving in time. If you do something in your business, chances are you can then take it and apply it to a customer's business as well. All right, so again, the software allows you to solve your problem, it's scalable, and then you can resell it many times over. So again, invest the time in understanding all the automation options that are available to you. All right, so again, think about all of this. Think about how you can use the automation to get the information you want on a regular basis, to filter out the stuff you don't want to see, to do things that you're doing repetitively. So lots and lots of options when it comes to automation, especially in the Office 365 and Microsoft area that you can then take and resell to customers. So some conclusions and some takeaways for you. I cannot stress how important software is. Software is so important. Learning those skills, PowerShell, JSON, all that sort of stuff, you really need to move. If you're pure hardware, you really need to move in the direction of, again, learning and understanding the software and the way that infrastructure typically is now deployed purely by software. Understand that you need to be continually learning. You need to take time away and invest in yourself so that you can continue to learn and be ahead of the curve. Being reactive, learning from a search engine is simply not going to cut it. You really need to continue and have a process, a systematic process when it comes to learning. Are you allocating an hour a week, an hour a day? What time are you allocating to learning, to playing with the technology, actually using it and understanding? You need to invest in yourself, and that means that you're going to have to trade some of your time, but that is going to pay off in the long run because you'll be ahead of the curve. Now, that means that we have to face an environment that is constantly changing. We can't change that, so we need to work out a system to deal with that. And one of the best ways to approach that is to look at simplifying. What shouldn't you be doing, right? There's too much coming at you. Well, reduce the amount of information. Some of the stuff you just can't monitor or you just can't do anymore. Maybe you don't do on-prem anymore. Maybe you don't work with older versions. There are tough choices to be made, but you need to free yourself up to focus on what's important, and that's really a decision that you need to make. But importantly, get used to the fact that things are going to be constantly changing, and part of that, the overriding thing here, is to really look at simplifying the whole environment, because again, less moving parts means less chance of problems. So with that, I thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Remember that you can consume my resources there, blog, podcast, tutorials, all sorts of stuff there, and feel free to contact me via the information there with any feedback or questions that you may have. Thank you very much for listening.